Okay, I told you guys what more do you want to know about threads. And there's one question that a lot of you guys have posted on Piazza, one problem, one surprising thing you found that you have not been able to explain. And anybody still remember some of the surprising things you might have posted? You said, why is this happening this way? And I just said, wait, I'll tell you later. So when you ran your animation, sometimes the animations ran and sometimes they didn't run. No? When did they not run? Anybody here who posted that question? Anybody tried to run an animation and you were surprised it didn't run? No? Okay, so you were surprised initially that when you ran the animation from Object Editor, it didn't run. You said, what's Object Editor doing? And then you ran it from your own GUI, it didn't run. And then you had to create threads, and then it could run. And Josh told you that. Okay, that was the Piazza discussion. Okay, so maybe you're no longer. So let's go back to our world, and let's try to understand why that happened. What's really happening there? Because I kind of told you something that was simplistic and not correct, and that's why you were surprised. It had to do with the repaint and paint method. Okay, and we're going to clarify that part now. So when we ran, we said. We said our motivation for threads was we wanted to do two things at the same time. And when we had to do only one thing at a time, we apparently did not need threads. And that was because we were running our animations from the main method. Okay? When we wanted multiple animations from the main thread, we had to create, from the main method, we had to create threads. Okay? That seems to be the moral of the story so far, as the concern. And what was, that was a structure which we already seen before. Now let's go and try to do the following. Rather than animating from the main method, we will animate from the UI. Okay? So from the main method, I'm not going to call the animate from origin method. I'm going to edit some object. That object will have some menu item that will go and start my animation. Okay? That's what I'm going to do now. Okay? And this is the code that will change. So I'm going to create an extension of shuttle animator that allows these parameters, like, what is the distance you have to move and how much time you wait, to be entered by the user. Okay, so we're going to call that a fancy shuttle animator. Okay, I'm not sure what this is happening, but what really happened, what do you expect to happen, by the way? I selected from the menu item. It's going to go from the initial position to the final position, and those of jump. There's no jump. It goes to the beginning, comes back to the position. So nothing happens. Sorry? That's why this took a long time. I don't know what's happening with this animation. But basically, whatever period you were going to animate, it just waits and just nothing changes. Nothing changes because it comes back to the original position. It goes to the origin. You don't see it going to the origin. And it comes back to the original position. So you don't see the transition because basically the animations don't play. That's what you guys saw was that it goes to the final position finally. It so happens my final position is the same as my initial position. Okay? So that's what happens here. And let's try to understand why that's happening in the next few minutes. Okay? So what was the difference? I had a fancy shuttle animator rather than a shuttle animator, and I went and edited this, and I had a main method, and my fancy animator is right here. It just goes and calls the animate from origin method in it. I guess I should really go back earlier. Maybe this will work. Maybe. So I tried to do twice, in fact. And both times nothing happened. It just waited. So to address this problem, let me go and ask a more subtle problem here. Okay. Let's go and talk about when main terminates. In this case, main will terminate when animate from origin terminated, right? When the animation finishes, the main will just finish. Here, main starts a fancy shuttle animator and then goes and says edit shuttle animator, and now it'll terminate when? When you close the object editor window? That's one semantics. Or it should end right after the edit object, before the object editor window is closed. And your intuition for saying that it should end when the object editor window closes is because you know something is happening. And you think that main is the driver behind everything. But main is just a good old thread. Okay? And the program will terminate when all threads terminate in it. So this must mean that after main has ended, there's still something going around that's displaying the windows and listening to our clicks. Okay? And that something is what kind of thread? What did Josh tell you there's only one thread of? The GUI thread. There is a GUI thread that we didn't quite create automatically, but that got created for us. And when do you think the GUI thread would be created? What will trigger the GUI thread to be created? When you create a window? When you create a window, or when you do what to a window? So you can create a window, which is a JFrame, and then you do what to that JFrame? Set it visible. So the GUI is not there till you set it visible. So only when you set it to visible is that thread created. Okay? And main thread executes in the loop, main thread terminates, main thread starts UI, main thread terminates. Main thread terminates, but our program does not. And just to show you that this is really the case, here is animate from origin being called from main in the main thread. Okay? Here is animate from origin being called not in the main thread, which has all disappeared, but in my GUI thread, which is called this AWT event queue 0 thread. Okay? So that thread will be there only if you've created a GUI and not otherwise. Okay? So that is one point to mention, that look, there is a GUI thread. There's somebody else that's doing work for us. Okay? So main starts and UI terminates and UI thread. And what's really happening? My main thread calls the main method, which makes the JFrame visible, and at that point I get an AWT thread. Okay, this AWT thread, and so this terminates. You set it to visible again. You get another. You get the same. It doesn't matter how many frames you set visible. There's only one GUI thread. Okay, so it doesn't matter. You don't get a GUI thread for each frame. Okay, now this is terminated, but still things are still happening. And now I go to my UI and I go and say animate shuttle. And when I do that, my AWT thread is the one that listens to the GUI event, my click. Okay, and it goes and calls animate shuttle directly or indirectly. Okay, which goes and calls animate from origin, which calls set shuttle XY. Okay. It calls repaint. Okay. Now, I told you earlier that repaint calls paint. That's not quite true. Repaint results in paint being called. Okay. So, what do you think, based on your understanding, who will call paint and when will it be called, do you think? So AWT thread is the one that's a UI thread. It's the one listening to mouse click. It's the one that's painting also. So all it does is when you go and say repaint, a paint event is put into a queue, which is read by the AWT thread. Okay? So at some later time, when AWT thread will go and process only one event at one time. It's currently processing this mouse click that results in this. So that's going to return, that's going to return, that's going to call set shuttle X again. It's going to call repaint, going to return, call set shuttle X again, return, and then compact. So our loop finishes, and then we see its effect in the repaint. Okay, you've got the basic idea. We'll just see some more slides to make this clear next time. Okay, questions? No. So we were looking at, we're trying to explain a phenomenon that you have seen already, which is that if you have an animation with a loop and sleeps in it, if you run it from the main method, it seems to work. You will see all the intermediate positions the animation is supposed to take. But if you run it from a UI, whether it's Object Editor UI or it's a UI you created, you will see all the sleep calls execute. So your method will wait for the sum total of all sleeps that the loop does, but you will not see the intermediate positions. Okay, you will just see the final position of your animation. Okay, that's something you have observed, and that's something that's confused you. And I gave you, the basic reason why that doesn't work, and we'll just go through that reason in slow motion today and understand it properly. And you guys also know the solution to this. You just create your own thread, and we'll just see that happening in these slides also. Okay. So there's really nothing new in terms of concepts that you'll see today. In fact, in your recitation, you saw code that did this. You even, I think, answered a quiz question on this. But let's just understand this properly. Okay. So let us see what happens when you go and do not create a special thread. So you have a main thread. You run a main method. Okay. The main method is not going to do the animation directly. It's going to create frames. Okay. And let's just see what happens when we do set visible in a frame. Okay. At that point, we saw last time that there is Okay. Here's where we started. Here's the main thread. Executes the main method. Okay. Main method will go and create a bunch of frames. Creation of frames has no effect on threads. Okay. When you first set a frame visible, any frame, at that point, a UI thread is created by set visible. Okay. And so this is the AWT thread. And you come back from set visible, and AWT thread is still around. Okay. And then you do another set visible, the AWT thread still, the same thread is used. Okay. So that's what we said last time. And your main method at this point can terminate. Okay. Your main method terminates, but your program does not terminate. The program will terminate only when all the threads that have been created for it terminate. Okay. So the program is still running, and you guys know that when you go and do the close button, at that point, Object Editor will go and actually listen to that event and say, okay, there no more frames around, so it'll go and kill. It'll go and actually kill your application. Okay. So so your main thread is gone, but the AWT thread is still around, and this frame that was this is one of the frames that was made visible, and it's around, and I can go and now use this particular. When I go and select from the menu, At this point, animate shuttle is called, okay, either by object editor. This is object editor, of course. And animate shuttle is going to call animate from origin, which is going to call set shuttle xy, which is going to call repaint. And originally, I had told you that, I don't know what words I used. Whenever you want to not commit yourself to saying something definite, you use the passive voice. So I should have said, when repaint is called, that results in paint being called, okay? Then I'm not committing myself to anything. But I might have said that repaint calls paint, which is not true, okay? Repaint results in paint being called, and it's a complex sequence of events that occurs that makes that happen. So basically what it does is it enqueues in a queue of paint events, saying that, look, I'm interested in repainting happening. But it is not and so that's what repaint does. So it goes into the queue, and then it comes back, animate from origin, then goes and executes the next part of the loop. It calls repaint again. A paint event for that component is already enqueued, so there's no need to enqueue another event. Okay, so you go back, and at this point, AWT thread goes and says, okay, I have now executed your animate shuttle method. It's done all these set shuttles, none of which were visible. Now AWT thread will go and call paint and say, okay, now I'm free. I've done this job. Let me look at my queue. And in the queue, there is this one event that it goes and services. And that event is used to actually call paint. So this is the final value that you saw. Okay? So this is what we said last time. And I'm just saying this in like I said, slow motion. Okay? Questions on this?
Why doesn't the thread go back again and then like go forward again?
So it goes back and forward. In general, a thread can go and weave its way through one set of method calls, come back, then weave its way through another set of method calls. Okay? So it executed this method. It's got to wait till this method finishes. This method will call this method. It's got to wait, so forth. So then this set shuttle returns. It goes back to animate from origin. Animate from origin has got a loop in it. It goes and calls set shuttle again. And so that's how the call sequences occurred. AWT thread is not going to call paint till it has finished animate shuttle. Animate shuttle will not finish till the whole loop is finished. So when the whole loop finishes, at that point animate shuttle returns, at which point it says, oh, I have done the user's task. Now I've got nothing else to do. Let me go look at my queue. And it goes and looks at the queue and finds this one event and goes and repaints it. So repainting did not occur till the AWT thread finished. So like I said, there's only one thread created for everything, and that thread can only do one thing at a time. Okay? Okay, so why is it that from the main method, animation worked? Okay, so there are two threads. That's the short answer. And let's look at the long answer here. So the main thread calls main. It calls set visible. The AWT thread is created at this point. Main now is not terminating. It goes and calls animate shuttle, which calls animate from origin, which goes and does this loop. It calls repaint. Repaint will go and put at this point the event in the queue, right? AWT thread is just waiting, and as soon as an event gets put in the queue, it's got nothing to do, so it goes and services the event immediately. So you see the value painted. AWT thread finishes its call. Set shuttle X finishes its call. It goes back to the loop. Loop goes and calls set shuttle XY again, which calls repaint again. Another event is now enqueued, and the AWT thread will go and service that. So we see a repaint happen for each set shuttle X, set shuttle Y. Originally, one repaint happened for everything, and now we have multiple method repaints happening. Okay? And just to make this all clearer, so this is what the AWT thread is probably doing. Okay, this is my understanding of what it's doing. I haven't looked at the code. It's just got this loop, and in this loop it's processing a bunch of events. Okay, these events could be your mouse clicks, your keyboard clicks, or your paint events. Okay? So it's waiting for an event, and the user goes and presses some menu button, okay? And that results in a menu button being serviced, which goes and executes this loop, okay? So this is going to answer your question a little better, okay? So now we are going through this, and that loop goes and finally calls repaint, okay? Repaint will go and enqueue an event into the same queue that the AWT thread waits on, okay? So AWT thread has now gone and enqueued an event for itself when it's free to go and service that event later. Repaint returns, and now the next step of the loop is executed, which tries to enqueue the event again. I don't know what AWT exactly does, but I would assume that if an event for that component has already been enqueued, it goes and says, I don't have to go do another enqueue, okay? And it goes back. Finally, when the loop finishes, it goes and says, do I have any other event in my queue? It does. It has one repaint method, painting queue. So it goes and actually calls paint graphicsg, the one that you guys execute. Okay. And to summarize this, and to summarize this all in one slide. So here's your AWT thread. You do a mouse click. That mouse click results in your loop being executed. And now, if you do another mouse click, what's going to happen? Are you going to call the listener code immediately? Remember, the mouse click happened. The mouse click resulted in this listener code being executed. While and how did the mouse click get serviced? The mouse click got put in the queue. So when this particular loop is being executed and you hit another mouse click, that mouse click is associated with listener code, right? Is that listener code going to be executed directly? It's going to put in the same queue. And it's going to execute this particular loop, come back and find any repaint events or mouse click events in the queue and service them. Okay? So now your repaint method, event has got put in the queue. Another repaint might be for another component. And new UI event is not processed until listener for previous event finishes. And now it's going to service the next event and so forth. Okay? So there's this queue, and you're automatically getting serial execution just because events get queued and the AWT thread does one thing at a time. Okay? Questions? And so, of course, if you want your animation to happen, from a button, you will go and do the same thing you did before. You'll set it visible. This will create the AWT thread. That's going to now return AWT thread, okay, and then AWT thread, okay, so now the AWT thread is going to call animate shuttle. And what we're going to do now, we're going to actually create an animation thread. That's what you guys have been doing. So you're going to create a special thread that goes and so your AWT thread is released. Your animation thread is now active. That's the one that's going to call run. That's the one that's going to call animate from origin. That's going to call your shuttle X. It's going to call repaint. It's going to put an event in the paint queue. Your AWT thread is free to go and service that event. So it's going to call paint, and everything works nicely. Okay? So a lot of complex things are happening when you do that. But that's why things are working. Okay? So what we wanted is happening, and of course you guys know how to do these things. So I've got my animate shuttle method is going to create a thread and start it, and again I think I need to go and correct this. I guess this is correct. I've got the and I use the concurrent shuttle animator other than my serial shuttle animator. And just to go and understand this properly, let's go and see this video. So I go to this, I say animate from origin, it's going fine. While this is happening, I can go and change my parameters. I do it one time, it goes again. I do it a second time. That event, because it's a synchronized method, it's going to get enqueued. And now here we go. Let me do the next one. Okay. So that's the kind of thing you have to do in your next assignment. And you see here how I've done it. Okay. So this is just